Ms. Reddy. Thank you so much for being here. To start, would you mind introducing yourself in your own words?
Sure. I'm Manjula Reddy. I'm the principal at Arizona College Prep Middle School. I'm of Indian, not American Indian, but from Indian descent. So I grew up in a small village. The nearest city was about 6 kilometers, so about 3.2 miles-ish from our village. So the village had about maybe 200 to 250 people in population. My dad's dad served as a sarpanch is what they call him, like basically village lead for 3 different villages. So he ended up having a lot of land in all 3 of the villages. His ultimate goal was to bring like a hospital and a school to our village. He obviously passed away, and then my dad and his brother didn't really do much with what was left behind, unfortunately. Ended up like really living off of what my grandfather had accumulated. So they didn't really add to it. They've only subtracted from it. But I grew up in a rural area, so without running water, without upper sewage, like toilets, or even like a stove. We had 1 room with electricity. And so we lived in a joint family house, but there was an earthquake. It was a pretty big house at one point, but then an earthquake destroyed the house a bit. So on our side, we ended up having only 3 rooms. One was the kitchen, one was the main room, and the other one was for the god. So typically the main room is where we slept as well as lived. And then cooking was in the kitchen and eating was in the kitchen. And then at one point, there was another earthquake that took away a wall of the kitchen. So for some time, the kitchen was even exposed to the outside. So I grew up in a very, very small area. Mom wanted to send us to school because we were all 4 girls. She wanted to go to school. She couldn't because she was one of 8. And there was barely any to send even the boys to school. So she was at home taking care of her brothers and sisters. She didn't want that same life for us as girls. So she kind of fought for us to go to what we call English medium school. The mandatory schooling was taught in the regional dialect. And so the 4 girls, we used to have to travel to the town to go to the English medium school. It's a private school. You have to pay tuition, all of that. So that was her dream. And she wanted us to go, and we got to go to school. And I think we are where we are because of her wanting something different from us. So the way the Indian system works is there's a caste system, as you know. So, whether it's lucky or whatever you want to call it, we happen to be in the upper caste. And so by the time we were going into college, there were very, very few scholarships for upper caste because they were trying to promote all castes to be able to thrive, which completely makes sense with us being girls and not really having an income, stable income, because my dad was into politics. And a lot of the time, the money we got from harvest, from our rice or sugarcane, he ended up investing it into politics. So there were times that, as embarrassing as it might sound, I would go to school and we hadn't paid tuition, so we would constantly be berated in front of the entire school. You haven't paid tuition. Why are you here? You got to pay tuition, those kinds of things. So we were land wealthy, but liquid assets, very little. So my mom and dad didn't really have a way for us to push forward from there. So one of my uncles, my mom's oldest brother, who studied from his uncle's house, because again, like I said, my mom couldn't study, so only the brothers could. And so they all took turns. The family took turns kind of helping kind of get an education. So he came to U.S. as a student literally right after the civil rights movement. That's when a lot of immigration opened up. And so he came as an engineering student and then slowly started applying for his family to come. And so we were second to the last to come up, even though in the order we weren't. So, he didn't necessarily go in the order because my dad and mom were not wanting us to go necessarily to the U.S., but then just our situation was becoming a little bit more dire. And they felt like as we were getting older, we needed more opportunities. So they took advantage because even prior to me being born, we were supposed to come. But dad said no, but then later on realized that with 4 girls, our only opportunities would have been getting married, or they would have to pay a lot of tuition for college, which they didn't have. And so that was that was why we made the choice for us to move to the States.
You mentioned your parents weren't that happy about the move at the beginning. How did you feel about it?
I was very unhappy. My gosh, Kathy. Like literally the day we were traveling, I went to school. Like on the day we were traveling to the US. I was in 8th grade. I went half a day. Our train was at like 1 p.m. I think. And I went to school until noon and then came home. And I just was like, I hate America. I don't want to go to America. And yeah, all those things. I was not looking forward to it. It's, I mean, that was my way of rebelling, which was going to school.
Did you have any fears at all, or did you just really hated the whole thing?
I don't think I had fears necessarily, but I knew it would change everything. Right? Like one, I was moving away from everything that I knew, and I was kind of a big fish in the small pond at my school. So I think I somehow at that age, I probably didn't really know, but I could sense that it was going to be a huge transition. But I didn't have fears necessarily. I didn't want to leave what I already knew.
What was your biggest struggle after you arrived?
I think after my arrival, it was the weirdest thing because I was the only one kind of by myself because my other two sisters happened to be in high school. So they had each other to rely on in school, whereas I was technically in middle school, so because in 8th grade, so I was by myself. I went to a different school, so I had to navigate it all on my own. So it was a little scary. I think just getting acclimated to it, because like I was telling you, I was kind of a big fish in a small pond in my school. And then the school that I went to in Texas, it was huge. So I think I wanted to kind of carve out a place where I felt like I could belong, and I just couldn't. And I think that was the biggest struggle. I'll be honest, family-wise, we were just trying to survive. Like the whole reason we had come to the States was for a better life. So everybody contributed. I worked, my mom and dad worked, which they had never worked outside of home because we were landowners. They just sat at home. You know, my mom cooked or whatever. Now she's working at McDonald's. My dad's working at the airport. My three sisters, or my oldest was working somewhere, I forget. My other two were working at McDonald's, and I was working as a babysitter at that point because I was only 13. And then once I hit 15, I started working at McDonald's as well. But we were all trying to survive. So the emotional needs didn't layer up. It was more, hey, we need to pay our bills. We need to be able to eat, and we could hopefully save some money on top of it. So that was our primary focus. So the focus wasn't like, how are you doing? You know, is everyone treating you nice? Nobody asked me that question. Nobody did. But I think I was very blessed to be the youngest because I can say my sisters didn't even get to like really, because they were already juniors in high school by the time we moved. And so, or 10th and 11th, I should say, not junior. Both of them were in the same grade. So they kind of already were into high school. I got to do things like join cross country and track. I even tried out for volleyball. And then I also got to go to the prom. So I got to do a few more things that my sisters didn't get to do because they were like, hey, we want you to also experience life a little bit differently. Our focus wasn't like, hey, are you doing okay? Focus is, we got to do this. We have to survive.
Is there anyone outside of your family who tried to help you, like teachers or friends?
This is where I think it fell short. And that's why I say to you about ACP, because no one really, like my uncles, all of them that had been living in the States, they would constantly ask me what grades I was getting and what colleges I need to get into, but nobody sat down and said, here's the application process. As you're going through it, you know how difficult it is to navigate, right? So nobody, like at home, my mom and dad never checked my grades, didn't even know, didn't ever go to a parent orientation, nothing, right? And no one really reached out. And I'll be honest, I think during that time, there weren't a lot of, like how we do now, the info sessions and parent meetings, all of that. There weren't a lot. Like they never even went to a meet the teacher. Like my parents never even met the teachers. And so it was all on me to take care of my business. Like that's your responsibility. We're putting food on the table for you. That's our responsibility. So the roles were pretty much clear cut. So this is where I wish like the counselors had done a little bit more one-on-one. But again, I went to a very large high school. I was one of 1,000 and something graduating seniors. So that's just my class. It's not a whole school. I couldn't even tell you who my counselor was. I don't even think I met them once. Besides when we were doing like course selections, when you guys do those course selections, that's it. I will say one person that I will forever remember were my English teachers. And the reason is this. My freshman year, English teacher was the one that said, you don't belong in regular. And so she somehow talked to someone and got me into all honors and then AP track. Another English teacher, I feel like they just had this eccentric ways about them. I did this as a teacher because I remembered her doing it. My junior English teacher, she made us write a letter to ourselves, like 2-3 years from the year that we were sitting in, what our hopes were, what did we want, where did we think we would be, blah, 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 and leave it with her. And then she mailed them to us. And so as a teacher, I remember doing that same exercise with my student, but I remembered those moments. I think there were a few, like my Mu Alpha Theta, because I joined the club. Mu Alpha Theta was a math competition club. There were a few of those opportunities that I was, again, like I said, being the youngest, the financial responsibility towards the family was a little less for me, although I worked full time. I worked 2 jobs the entire my high school time. It was a little less for me, so it allowed me to do things like being in track, cross country, going to dances, being in this Mu Alpha Theta math club, those things. So I'll say I was blessed in that way. Were someone sitting with me and going through it? No. But in a way, did that help me? Yes.
Your story is very inspiring. Changing the topic a little bit, have you ever faced any discrimination or prejudice in the United States?
I wish it weren't the case, but yes, many times. I think the most recent one that has stuck to me and that really made me almost question if I'm in the right place was there were several instances where there were some racial slurs used against me. School itself is a very interesting school because you have half the kids, a little more than half the kids are neighborhood kids. The other half are open enrollment kids. And because it's positioned in, if you look to this side, you have the uber wealthy. And then you look to this side, you have the low socioeconomic families coming in. And so there was always racial tension, at least from students' side. They would come and tell me this, right? And there were also political differences, strong opposing almost. And so one of the times, I think when the 2016 elections had started, things kind of started changing in America. I felt like it was the pulse of the country because you have both sides coexisting on one campus. Like I had to sit and listen to families come and sit with me. And this was students would say something like, I should have my preference of bell schedule. And those kids should be the ones that have whatever they can get. They shouldn't have any preference, even things like parking spots. And you might think it's trivial, but I'm like, what does that narrative say? That somehow you deserve it and they don't. And how do you decide that? And so when I was hearing that from students, it really disheartened me. One of the times I started getting emails from kids saying, like anonymous emails would say things like, something like, you look like a baby of a Frog and Slumdog Millionaire, like got together. I think there was one time, like I was walking by, talking to some students about during lunchtime, just redirecting them for something, I can't remember, and just them answering back in like a mock Indian accent. So those would be the most recent, I would say. So yes, definitely there is. And like even my daughter went to school and she's half black, half Indian. But most of the time people only see the Indian because she tends to look more like me. They even told her something like, oh, you're one of those stupid Indians. I think this for me completely explains how I feel about my time in America. I love America, don't get me wrong. This journalist in New York, I think it was a New York Times journalist, wrote about a time where he was walking with his kid, Chinese-American journalist, walking his son or daughter, I forget now, in the neighborhood. And this lady stops him and says, where are you from? And he says, we live down the street. And she says, no, where are you from? He says, New York, wherever that is. And she's like, no, you're not really American. So where are you from? And so it's this idea that it doesn't matter what I do and what my contribution is, but somehow I'm foreign, right? I'm not accepted as part of it. I'm somehow something different and something foreign always. So I think that always stays in my mind. And I hope that I don't work with that chip on the shoulder. But when I walk into spaces, that's in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Talking about these moments can be really tough. How did you handle it specifically, like with the students in 2016? How did you help them be more supportive?
I was honest, and the parent was right next to them. I said, I'll be honest with you, the way you're coming across right now, it sounds very much like this rhetoric that I'm hearing outside. So if that's not your intention, you probably don't want to say it that way. You can still fight for what you want, what your needs are. You don't have to say who deserves it, who doesn't deserve it. And I think immediately the parents are like, are you calling my son racist? I'm like, no, I'm not. This is what I'm saying. I'm hearing. If that's not the case, then I'll take it. But of course, there was a fear that I'd get, because I had already been told to the board when I had corrected a student in that manner. So I immediately went to my principal and I said, hey, listen, just letting you know this happened. But I had to be true to who I was. And I felt like as an educator, I needed to, in that moment, tell that student how they were coming across. So the comments made directly to me by students, the student that was mocking me, let's say the student that had sent me an email about saying that I'm a product of a frog and Slumdog Millionaire, I called the parents and I spoke with the student. So my principal wanted to suspend them. I said, no, that's not going to change their view. If anything, that's going to make them react in anger. And the part that I told them about is, as an administrator on this campus, if you feel that comfortable saying these things to me, it worries me about what you're saying to your peers. And that's why I want to have this conversation. So I had parent meetings, and hopefully they learned something from that experience, and maybe the next time they're more careful about their words. That's my hope. That's when I was like, I don't know if this is the right choice for me.
It looks like you're doing everything you can to help all the students.
We'll see.
What do you wish every American knew about your story?
There's nothing really that special about my story or my life. I think just to know that we're all people, and that everyone should see everyone as a person first before anything else. And I know it's hard. I know it's very, very hard, because the minute you see someone, there's 10 judgments that are already going through your mind. But I hope we get to that where we just say, here's Kathy. What is she like? What does she want to do? Rather than what I think Kathy wants.